Hello! We're back here with another review of Friday Night Smackdown of the first day one of the WWE draft to implement the already oddball dumb roster because of recent releases, shakeups or trades, or some reason to see Styles again on SmackDown over the reluctant trade that had no story after he was done with The Undertaker and practically everything else that happened in 2020, that was a complete mistake. But other than that, we had the draft. Has become drama, excitement, and more BS. So, what happened? The WWE draft happened, so we had, of course, the WWE champion still on Raw because he's still feuding with Randy Orton. Roman Reigns stays on SmackDown. Asuka stays on Raw. Rollins goes to SmackDown. The Hurt Business stays on Raw. Styles is on Raw, back to Raw after under a year. So there's very little impact. I thought they would have done it in certain ways. You would have competition to compete, because this is what happened in the earlier format of the WWE draft. You had competition over a segment of matches for representation over your certain brand, and whoever wins gets the pick. It would be fair enough. It gets competition, and it caused insightful unpredictability. They make this BS look like a sport. I was never in the concept of that. At least for WWE back then, the first time they implemented that type of draft format, it was when they literally bought out two separate companies that were their competition with a whole heap of wrestlers. So you get Evolution, you can get Triple H, Brock Lesnar, Hulk Hogan, like a whole lot of freaking superstars. Kane, Undertaker, Rob Van Dam, Justin. Just changing my mind there. The only big, the only big things that happen is Mysterio, Dominic on SmackDown, Rollins is on SmackDown, Lars Sullivan made an appearance. Naomi's on Raw now, and so is the New Day, or 2/3. Yes, Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods are headed to Raw after winning their SmackDown Tag Team Championships against Cesaro and Nakamura. So you just shovel them out the gate. So it's either they're planning to do a unification with the Street Profits, or they're gonna lead them vacant on Raw. And if that was the case, why would you draft them? It was either beforehand or something else. Or they thought that they weren't going to win the titles to begin with. And that would make no sense because it's predetermined. Majority were just stay picks. The only difference was Bianca Belair was heading to SmackDown. Mandy Rose was already on Raw because of the trade. If you guys foreclose all this BS, when you guys have established contracts, like there's already lack of identity in either brand except the time slot in the channel and the color. So what do we start with? A false cat anywhere match that immediately bleeded off the back after we had a dumb spear off Big E from the outside the ring post, slamming each other with steel chairs until they headed off to the back, attacking each other around the hallways to the parking lot. Big E got tossed with eggs and flour, obviously mocking his pancake shtick, getting booting around. He got lacerated over the back and elbow and arm, over getting another Irish cross over to the front mirror of the front window of the car. He ended up hitting a big ending on the table, even though it should hurt him more than it will hurt Sheamus, but whatever, it's his finishing move. And that was the finish. I guess that'll be the conclusion of Sheamus feuding with a Big E. It ended up later on after his interview over a big win with Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods masquerading as janitors, even though these guys are official parts of the roster. So them sneaking in, I mean, would it be a surprise because they were notable for injury earlier on? So yeah, later on had an but we'll go more into detail with the rest of the New Day later on in the review. We of course had the Tribal Chief speaking to Jey Uso, and I like the dramatic drama in a steel cage Hell in a Cell match. Sounds good. I feel like, and it's super personal. It feels, and over the Paul Heyman, he never does this a lot with Brock Lesnar, and it's like you will do this in the tribal chief Roman Reigns time, and it makes him feel so legitimate. Roman Reigns speaks so placid and quiet. It makes him feel like whatever he's going to say, something is going to sound important. And I'm not saying that Roman Reigns doesn't have the opportunities to be a good talker. He has the chances to speak. Obviously, he was better than he was 5 years ago, and that's a pure fact. But it was a decent promo going over the relationship and how you should have just acknowledged me as your tribal chief, and we didn't have to go this route. So Hell in a Cell I Quit match. We're probably gonna have Hell in a Cell match with Roman Reigns and Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre on Raw. And it's like, oh my god, can we please stop with the gimmick matches on pay-per-view? This is what the values people to even solidify the fact that Hell in a Cell even means anything. It really doesn't anymore, and it's so insulting. Like Triple H and Shawn Michaels, Mankind versus Undertaker, Mankind versus Kane, Mankind versus Triple H. When was the last time you actually had a compelling Hell in a Cell match that was meaningful, at least had a story behind it? And that you remember. Don't you dare bring up the Shane McMahon elbow drop over the Hell in a Cell match from WrestleMania 32. The story was mediocre as it was. Shane McMahon wanted to freaking kill himself, and it was a cool spot, but nothing. But the only thing was he lost, and he wanted to buy out. He wanted to be responsible for Raw, for only specifically one show. I understand Raw's the A show, but why? Wouldn't it be better because of your birthright that you'd be, want to own the entire WWE? But besides the point, cool enough. I can't wait to see this match. It's gonna have a whole lot of personal stuff in. We're missing that in WWE. Next up, we have The Miz and Morrison against Jeff Hardy and Matt. We had some drop kicks. We had a triangle bottom rope kick from um, Hardy. Of course, a DDT. It ends off the Bro Daryl. I forgot what he calls it, man. It's the Bro Derek and over Miz for the victory. It wasn't even that much of a storyboard. It ended up with two baby faces celebrating in the win for Lars Sullivan, or the man who got his bleep sucked in a adult video, and ended up coming out assaulting not Miz Morrison. It was Hardy and Matt Riddle. So yes, it's a major return for Sullivan. He's still on SmackDown, so whatever he's gonna do is probably gonna be as lackluster as that Lucha House Party feud he had last year. Seriously, why feud with midgets? I don't know what was the reason for that. If you wanted to build this guy as such a cut above the rest when they were doing that 4-person, like I think of 6-person NXT call up, and you have him facing off against what looks like bottom tier, lower card status. Like, why? Stop having like 27 Ring of Honor writers do this BS. Next up was as well lackluster. We had freaking Bayley versus Sasha Banks. Bayley brought a chair to a normal match. So we know we're selling this up for next week. And immediately over aggression conceded, Sasha started immediately with some assaults. As well as slapping her face, slapping her head. Some attempts off meteoras. We had some rollouts and some drop kicks. Pretty much a lot of crucifixes and some rolls off the pin, especially. I thought it way too early Bayley was getting out of the bank statement. I understand it was early up in the matchup, but I just thought it was like, you don't undersell a finisher like that. It ended up with a steel chair hitting the body of Sasha Banks that end up with a DQ. And none of the commentators even foreshadowed it out that the steel chairs were going to play a major factor in this match. Why in the world would she even bring it out? She didn't even try to attempt to target the neck until after or over the match, and it ended up with Bailey walking out. They did issue another match for next week for the women's championship, with Sasha with another cold-hearted, holding her neck promo over when I'm going to take that matters to her the most. The SmackDown Women's Championship. I'm not saying that she isn't a decent talker. I just feel like it's super scripted. It's so basic. I really don't like this feud because of how much it overwashed it. If they had this at like Backlash or something, it would be more compelled because Sasha was literally screwed from the jump back at Mania 36 in that six-pack challenge for the SmackDown Women's Championship, and they foreclosed after having her literally being fed to the dogs to make sure Bayley kept her title, and to immediately going into a multi-month run with the Women's Championship, getting a run with the Raw Women's Championship, and now they do this personal feud over having so much success in literally the span of the entire spring and summer to now go over this personal stuff. And I just find it so dumb, and they treat Sasha like goddamn Zack Ryder. Next up, we had Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura against the New Day. Xavier Wood and Kofi Kingston returned to action after Xavier was at, I think he's been injured since late last year, and Kofi that was suffering from a bit of an injury for like late July. So now they come back, feel good moment, and they immediately get a title shot to Corey Graves. At least issue that this was literally handed to them, that it was, and they took advantage of it again. By God, oh my God, I'm so pissed. Whatever. It ended up with of course, that tope Xavier likes doing. Boom drop was negated. Exploder suplex for an air fall. A rough European uppercut over to Xavier Woods. I was a bit scared because I know his injury history. Some terrible strikes off Kofi Kingston. There was, of course, an elevated DDT off Xavier Woods for a near fall. It ends off the Trouble in Paradise. He was cut off before, and then it got an elevated DDT. If you've seen a New Day match, you've seen it all. They're gonna pull some air assault shit, do their generic moveset, and then somehow dive. It is an impressive elbow drop, but it's just not that exciting. They literally had this match out of nowhere after literally being out of action for several months. Especially Xavier Woods, that he didn't seem like he was that rusty into the match. Obviously better than Dynamite's match with the FTR against Jack Evans and uh Helico. I forgot how it is called. I think I said it correctly. But other than that, average match. The New Day are tag team champions again, and it's so underwhelming. Big E comes to celebrate with with his friends until Stephanie came out congratulating the group and then saying that Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods, the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, are drafted to Raw. More of the question I care about is why are the SmackDown belts going to Raw? I'm really not compelled to know about the New Day being traded to Raw, and whoever makes a single video on it, just know I know you're bored. I know you're bored. Oh God, I want to consult yes, these men been in a group for the last several years and conceded somewhat success. They've became the longest reigning tag team champions, the most title reigns over the decade of the 2010s, and of course, Kofi Kingston finally became WWE champion, and that's the most success that came out of nowhere. I'm sure no other child would think that grown black men twerking, gyrating, and Biggie with big ass tits coming around breaking Road Warriors record. Kofi Kingston that comes around being like Rico's side piece, having a 6-month title reign. Or Xavier Woods being in a sex. You know what? Never mind. It's just aggravating. So it looks like formally the New Day are split up. There was there was of course talking smack where it had an emotional standpoint over the New Day acknowledging over most of their history. Yay. I think a majority of fans already hate the New Day, their backstage exploits, some of their SJW targetings to even get Kofi to where he is. I'm not a fan of the New Day. I've only been a fan of them because when they were heel because it fits the opposition, and they got Kurt Angle over. The only people that have a semblance of charisma in that group is technically Xavier Woods and Biggie Langston. And hopefully, like he has a better identity than just being a New Day big muscle for the last few years, and actually gets to be an individual star. It shows that he's more than just fabulous part of the New Day. So next up, we have, of course, our main event that had Kevin Owens taping up. There's a vignette hyping up the factor over the confrontations over the 2 episodes of the KO show, with Alexa coming out of nowhere being like, "Let him in." And of course, the match would start immediately with an immediate brawl. The Fiend's flaccid entrance, Kevin Owens coming out, and the match started immediately with Sister Abigail on the commentary table, attempt on the powerbomb in the apron. There's tables involved. I think there was a semblance of a table involved. Near fall off. I think it was a Uranagi off a face lock. After the Manimal Claw was even applied, he no-sold the stunner after trying to reverse the Uranagi. I mean the Manimal Claw. I thought that was a cool thing. Uranagi'd Kevin Owens and knocked him out for the victory. Kevin Owens wins. If you care about the rest of the draft, I mean, look it up. It's on the website. You can look at any other recap site as where anybody else who's compelled to tell you that this draft actually means something. Doesn't really does. It's shaking up the things. It's going to be Superstar the Brand Split Invitational. Oh my god, the wild card. Oh, kill me. This is not working. This is not working at all. I feel like it's way too early, and I understand that you're trying to implement a different format to shake up that your roster's completely underwhelming with very little household factors other than now Roman Reigns. And people forget that Kane's part of your show. It's the draft was okay on the standpoint of at least affecting parts of the roster, some negatively, some positively. I don't think it's gonna help the formatting of the show, thanks to gonna be in the same setting for quite a while. I felt like most of the matches were underwhelming. We're really gonna still drag the story. There's at least a semblance of a storyline with Rey Mysterio, Rollins, and Dominic, and thanks to the same brand, they're probably gonna etch this out to Hell in a Cell. I just have a huge complaint over the the booking of like using a summarizing factor like something as personal as Hell in a Cell, and you use it as like a gimmicky match. Like, it's Hell in a Cell. Nothing sounds kiddish about Hell in a Cell. Nothing sounds, sure, it's cool and it's fun, but it's not something you implement to kids. That's like the final thing you use. That's like the last resort for a personal storyline. Like Jey Uso and Roman Reigns can have that, and that should be the main event. Some person's like, oh, let's have one Hell in a Cell match in the beginning, one Hell in a Cell match in the middle, and one Hell in a Cell match in the freaking main event. And that's so dumb because that underwhelms the whole stipulation, and it underwhelms that anybody can be in a Hell in a Cell match. It's not like Lockdown. At least the whole gimmick is that everything is a cage match. Like, no one's gonna watch Sasha Banks versus Bayley in Hell in a Cell. No one's gonna watch Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre against Randy Orton in Hell in a Cell storyline wise. That's just my opinion on the matter. So we of course have this afternoon that will be day 2 of the draft and finalizing of the majority of the other rosters because these are just some of the more important names that are left out on television. The rest of the detail of the lower carders or the other stars will be later on, probably displayed on the website already. So you have SmackDown was mediocre, as you can tell from my demeanor and my tone. Other than that, if you enjoyed it, that's great. If you didn't, that's also greater. But that's it coming from me. Thanks for watching.